This is John Getty with Loudoun Independent. We're here with John Brownlee, former United States Attorney and candidate for the Republican nomination for the Attorney General's office. He's currently in the three-person race, running against Ken Cuccinelli and Dave Foster. Mr. Brownlee has agreed to sit down and talk with us about himself and his plans for those facing Loudoun County.
Yeah, I think that the primary duty of the Attorney General of Virginia is to make certain that our neighborhoods and our communities are safe. That is the mission. Now, the Attorney General is a big job. He's the General Counsel of public universities. He's a lawyer for all the local state agencies like DEQ and the like. But the number one priority, the number one mission of the Attorney General is public safety, to make sure that neighborhoods and schools are safe, that kids are safe in their neighborhoods, that moms and dads can feel secure in their own communities. And that's the duty, that's the primary mission of the Attorney General. My background experiences, I believe, are best suited in this field to be the Attorney General nominee from our party, and I believe by far the best candidate to be the Attorney General when compared to the Democrat. I've dedicated my entire professional life to law enforcement. When I left law school, I clerked for a federal judge for 2 years, and then I became an assistant U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia. I cut my prosecuting some of the most violent defendants in Washington, D.C., and so I know about the violent acts of these defendants, and I know how to prosecute them, and in the process learned about building societies. I think the President and Senator Allen and Senator Warner recognized that, and in 2001 appointed me U.S. Attorney for the entire western part of our state. And so I was the top federal law enforcement officer for over half of Virginia for nearly 7 years. And in that time, I prosecuted just about every criminal defendant you can imagine, from rape cases to murder cases to drug trafficking cases to Ponzi schemes to white-collar crime to public corruption to corporate offenses. And in that time, I learned, and I think can bring that experience now to the Office of Attorney General, of making Virginia a safer and better place to live. My opponents are good people. They're good lawyers, but neither of them have ever served as a prosecutor, and neither of them have ever served in the military. I'm also the only veteran running, and I think that leadership training that the Army has provided me as an infantry guy for 4 years, and then 10 more years as a JAG officer, is invaluable to the Office of Attorney General, providing strong leadership to make sure Virginia remains safe.
You spent 2 terms as United States Attorney. What are you most proud of during your time there?
You know, I think it's a combination. One of the things we did, of course, is we went after the street crime. And one of the ways we did that is we strictly enforced our narcotics trafficking laws. We went after the crack dealers, the methamphetamine dealers, these people who are lining their pockets by selling essentially poison to our citizens. And we took a very strong stand. But we also went after violent criminals, particularly violent criminals with firearms. These are people who are out there bullying people, causing great harm in our community. They're convicted felons with guns, and we went after them to take them out. And we did that very effectively. And what you saw was a reduction of violent crime while I was United States Attorney for over half our state. I worked very closely with local law enforcement. We did a lot of cases, and we made Virginia safer. So on the public safety front, I think we did a lot of good when I was U.S. Attorney. But we also went after public corruption. I've convicted mayors and sheriffs and members of the boards of supervisors when they went corrupt. You know, public corruption can kind of tear at the very fabric of a community. When people say, you know, hey, rules don't apply to these guys, they only apply to me, they can do whatever they want to, it tears at that fabric of the community, and they believe that those are not addressed or enforced fairly. Well, we changed that. We went in and said, no, they will be addressed fairly. And we convicted sheriffs who went corrupt, or mayors, or boards of supervisors. So we did that, and then we did the corporate stuff as well. We convicted Purdue Pharma, the maker of OxyContin. This was a company out of Connecticut who lied their drug and then made hundreds of millions of dollars selling it illegally. We convicted that company. We made them pay the money back. We convicted the executives. And so on all levels, whether it be corporate crime, individual public safety stuff, the public and white-collar crime, we were able to address it. In addition, I was also ran an entire civil division. I defended the government when they were sued, and exactly like the duties of Attorney General. And then I ran a civil division, criminal appellate division, and then was also the lawyer for 22 federal agencies.
You're correct. Virginia is in a difficult economic period right now. What can the Attorney General's office do to help the economic situation in Virginia? And in particular, what can you do to help local businesses?
One of the things that hurts local business is permitting, the time it takes to get permits, and also litigation, unnecessary, unwanted litigation. And so I have a program of tort reform that I want to do to be able to reduce the litigation costs of businesses. I also want to be able to work to make our permitting process more efficient and faster and quicker. Bob McDonald has talked about in his quest for the governorship. Businesses have a lot of expenses, and we need, as a state and state leaders, to try to reduce those expenses, make that process more efficient, more effective, so that they can go on and actually do the business of running that business as opposed to dealing with government. Regulation slows down business. It may be necessary in some times, but we want to make it more efficient and effective. And I think the Office of Attorney General can do just that.
You're a supporter of guns in Virginia and the Second Amendment. However, Virginia is still reeling from the shootings that occurred in Virginia Tech in 2007. How would you balance the rights of gun owners against the need for public safety in Virginia?
I was a local prosecutor in Washington, D.C. As you know, Washington, D.C. had at the time some of the strictest gun control laws in our country, and yet it remained one of the most violent cities. I firsthand that gun control does not enhance public safety. And in fact, I think you could make an argument it does just the opposite, because what it does is it takes away the rights of those to defend themselves, and it leaves the weapons, the guns, in the hands of the criminals. And that's what you saw happen in Washington, D.C. And those were valuable lessons for me. And so when I speak to this issue, I have a lot of credibility on it. I mentioned Virginia Tech. I was U.S. Attorney when that happened. I was there that day. I responded to that crime scene. And so I have a good understanding of the ramifications of this kinds of violent acts and violent crime. That being said, I don't believe that restricting the constitutional rights of law-abiding citizens is the answer, nor do I believe that it will stop those things. We need to do a better job of identifying these kinds of defendants so that we can prevent it and enforcing the law against those violent criminals. That's who's causing most of the crime in this country. And there's a mill in this criminal justice system, and these folks go in it and they come out. You see defendants who get a 4-year sentence, but all of it but 2 months suspended. We didn't see that when I was U.S. Attorney in the federal system. We have truth in sentencing. You don't get time suspended like that. You get 4 years, you do 4 years. And so I understand how to build safer communities. It's what I've dedicated my life to. And I am uniquely prepared to do that here in Virginia to keep this a safe state. As you see the economy continue to sour, you will see, I predict, a spike in violent crime. I think you've seen it here in your very community. And we need to take a very strong stand against it. And when I'm Attorney General, I'm going to make sure that I'm there supporting prosecutors, supporting law enforcement, to make certain that these cases, once they come up on appeal, that justice is done.
Northern Virginia has an expanding gang problem. What can the Attorney General's office do to help localities stop the spread of gang violence?
When I was U.S. Attorney, we actually took on some of these gangs. And some of the more traditional gangs use narcotics trafficking as their funding mechanism. We did some Bloods and Crips types of gang down in the western part of our state. We did motorcycle gangs up in the northwestern part of the state. And what you saw is they would deal with meth or crack, and that's how they would fund their gang. And we were to infiltrate the gang, prosecute them for narcotics trafficking, and punish them very severely. Some of these new gangs that we're seeing, particularly MS-13 and others, don't use those narcotics trafficking in the traditional sense for their funding mechanism. They are very violent. They have very violent initiation process, and they are very violent against those who challenge them. And so we need to step forward and be equally as tough on them. We have some new gang laws. One of the things that Bob McDonald did is he authorized money for a gang prosecutor out west. The first thing I did was I made sure he was cross-designated as a special assistant U.S. attorney, so he would have access to the federal system and the state grand jury to be able to get a tougher sentence for these violent defendants. So we need to get better. We need to have more coordination with law enforcement. And my time as U.S. attorney, I believe, suits me uniquely to go after these gangs. The reality is that the Republican Party of Virginia's choice. It's going to be able to nominate a business lawyer, a patent, or the former U.S. attorney. The public will demand that a prosecutor serve as attorney general. If you go back the last 25 years, the last 6 terms of attorneys general in Virginia, 5 of those 6 terms were filled by prosecutors, and every time the voters had to make a choice between a prosecutor and a non-prosecutor, they picked that prosecutor every single time. Now, the Democrats understand this. They will nominate a prosecutor, Mr. Shannon, and so it is imperative that the Republican Party of Virginia, the law and order party, nominate a prosecutor to challenge Mr. Shannon, and I'm the only one running. And with me, you get not just a prosecutor, but the former top federal law enforcement officer, plus former military officer. That is a model for victory, and I'm the only candidate that offers our great party that opportunity to win.